Hey, this is Monique, and this time we're going to hem a pair of suit pants, only instead of having just a plain hem, flat hem, instead of just a hem, we're going to put a cuff in them. And so it's for my really tall friend David, so I didn't have to cut any off. If I was doing it for someone that wasn't quite so tall, I would cut it and I would have sewn it around on the serger at the very bottom before I turned it up. If you do this and you don't have a serger, you can just do a zigzag stitch, and that will work to hold that fabric so that it doesn't ravel and give you something to sew to. Anyway, I'll show you what I did for this pair of pants. And so what it really is a very deep hem that's folded back up on itself. So I marked where the bottom of the pant needs to be. And my friend is so tall that there was none to be cut off. It took all of it to make it with a cuff for my friend David. So this I marked all the way around on both sides so that I would have plenty of places to refer back to it. So because the legs taper as they go down, it gets smaller and smaller, and that's going to make it bunch up a little. By the time you fold it all the way up to where it needs to be to hem it, I'm going to let it out just a little. Give myself a little more by cutting the side seam and the inseam and opening them up just a little. Now, I had to be careful because I didn't want it to go up into the part that's going to show on the outside part of the pant leg, but on the inside it gave it just a little bit more. So now I'm going to fold this really deep hem. And I have to admit that I should have turned the pant leg inside out at this point. Sometimes I can't think about everything at once. Sometimes I think about too many things at once. This time, I should have thought about turning the pant leg inside out to fold up the hem. It works this way. It's just, you have to work it a little more than if they're inside out. So, see, that's a really deep hem. If that was just the hem on a pair of pants for a suit, they would be... you would think they were borrowed and that you had to give them back and put the hem back where it was. So it's a really deep hem. So I marked that all the way around at the sides and then halfway in between at the front crease and at the back crease. But I want to add a few more pins, so I'm going to split the difference between those pins at the side and the front and add pins all in between. Now, I pulled 4 times the length there to make the thread long enough. And then I run it through some beeswax. If you've never used beeswax, it might be worth checking into. It makes this thread smoother. It doesn't twist back on itself, and it doesn't get caught on things as easy, which is kind of nice because I have a lot of pins to work around here. So when I start, I'm opening up that side seam a little instead of making it touch there. I'm opening it up and catching my first few stitches into that seam allowance and not all the way through to the pants. But now it's time to move out. So how far apart should the stitches be? There's no perfect answer, but I use my thumbnail. And not even my whole thumbnail. Maybe mine's wide. I don't know. It's one I've got. So I kind of pick in my imagination where I want it to be, and I line up my thumbnail on there. If you want it to be really exact, you can make a little mark on them, like with a Sharpie or something. That would come off easy enough, but that would give you a guide for keeping your stitches even. No one's going to go and inspect it, but it just makes it look neater if it is. And then working around with that even spacing between the stitches. So the next important thing is, how much do you pick up? Because you don't want that thread to show on the inside. So I'm basically picking up like 1 thread of fabric. See, just a very little bit there, and then catching it through it. You can almost see the needle on the outside, but not hardly any. It's just one little bitty bit of thread. So that all the way around, catching as little bit as you can, and not pulling them super tight. And then when you get to all the way around, well, actually you would do this a little bit on both sides. Leave that open just a little to give it a little more ease there because of the taper. See, if you look close, you can see little picks in it, but those are right where it's going to be folded up to. Now, be sure to set your iron to the right temperature for your fibers and use a pressing cloth. This pressing cloth is actually where someone else had some pants hemmed who did not have a cuff and wasn't quite as tall as my friend David is there. So this time I'm ironing to get that nice fold into the bottom. I'm not worried too much about the front crease and the back crease because they're going to change once they're folded up again. So then when I do fold it up, I pin it because it'll just creep around on me and then they won't be even. And that's no fun. So now that I've got it pinned up, now I want to give it a good hard iron to get the front crease and the back crease onto the cuff, because as you fold it inside and outside, it changes. All right, so now I left that little bit of gap open there, and I'm going to go in now and just do a little bit of a stay stitch there so that that seam doesn't continue to come undone. And it's just right there, I don't know, what, 1/2 inch from the bottom of the finished pant leg length. So just a little stay stitch there to hold that in place. And then I'm going to go up and sew the cuff up. It only gets sewn on each side. So I don't do just one little tack, I kind of do a stitch. And so I'm going to go in and I'm going to stitch in the ditch. That is the ditch where the two sides, the front and the back, come together and make a little ditch. And I'm going to sew in and out in that ditch, and that thread just disappears down into that space. But I'm not tacking it just over and over in one spot. I'm actually sewing up. I'm kind of doing a back stitch and working my way up to within about 1/4 inch of the top of that cuff. And that makes a very neat cuff. And then I'll, of course, go to the back and tie it off and clip that. But stitching in the ditch gives a nice invisible finish. And then tie that off there in the back. Thanks for watching. I hope that was useful. I hope your suit pants with cuffs turn out perfect the first time, or at least the second time if it's like some things. Anyway, I want to continue to ask the Lord to make His ways known to me and to teach me His paths. I hope you do too. See you next time.